So, welcome everybody to our latest installment of Let's Talk Leadership. For those that have not joined us in the past, this is a discussion with either members or friends of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta to discuss their leadership journey. And it is targeted towards our scholars, our high school, college students, as well as our young professionals as they embark on their leadership journeys, just to give them a little guidance along the way and let them hear from some veterans that have done some amazing things in leadership. And today we have Ernest Greer with us. And it is a treat to have Ernest with us because we know Ernest is a very busy man. And we thank him for his time. I will introduce Ernest and then we will jump into our questions. So Ernest Greer, a St. Louis native, is co-president of Greenberg Trarick, an international law firm of over 2,200 attorneys in 40 locations. Ernest is one of the highest ranking African Americans in the global law firm. Ernest plays a key role in the strategic direction of the firm and firm-wide day-to-day operations. He is not just a highly accomplished attorney, but he is an outstanding leader and champion for his community. Ernest served as the chairman of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce in 2014, where he was the first lawyer to serve in this capacity in the chamber's more than 100-year history. He is also a past board member of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta and currently serves on the boards for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the Atlanta History Center, Achieve Atlanta, Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, the Atlanta Police Foundation, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, and Equal Justice Works. So the brother is always giving back on many fronts. Ernest's leadership accomplishments and legal practice have been recognized by many industry publications and organizations, and he was recently announced as a 2021 inductee into the JA of Atlanta Hall of Fame. Additional accolades include being named an Equality Trailblazer by the National Law Journal, a Corporate Diversity Champion and Most Admired CEO by Atlanta Business Chronicle, Distinguished Leader by the Daily Report, and he is named to both the Atlanta 500 by Atlanta Magazine, as well as the 100 Most Influential Atlantans by the Atlanta Business Chronicle. So we have a living legal legend here with us today. And I think most importantly about Ernest is that whenever we call him, he always answers and steps up to the plate. So we truly appreciate that. He's helping our organization with a few initiatives. And personally in my life, when I was making a big decision about my career, I reached out to Ernest and he found the time to walk me through a couple of things and help me think about things different ways and help me make that decision. So I'm very appreciative of that as well. So we present to you today, Ernest Greer.
What's up, Gooch?
All right, Ernest, you ready? Let's talk a little leadership today, sir.
You tell me what you
All right,
want.
let's jump right in it. Tell us
Okay.
about your role as co-president of one of the largest law firms in the world, and how did you get here?
Well, on a day-to-day basis, my main job is really to inspire, um, inspire to create a winning culture, really to translate it from a business to more of a competitive, family, collaborative team sport atmosphere. And so that's really what I do on a day-to-day basis. And, obviously the the metrics are, how are we doing with revenue? How are we doing with clients? I oversee all of our client engagement, strategic um, um, business development, oversee our paralegals and offices and just day-to-day stuff. But I would say that on a core basis, it's really to inspire, create a vision, and try to create individual plans for individual lawyers or even administrative in our administrative court to be successful. How I got here, man, I don't know because I didn't intend to be a lawyer. I was all set to do it to take on an investment banking job out of college. I happened to apply to law schools because my classmates and my roommates were applying to law school. I had decided that I was going to go to New York, and then the woman I was dating, who is my wife, Patrice, got a job in St. Louis, where I was from, just by happenstance. And then I got a letter from Northwestern saying that if I went, they would make me a Northwestern fellow, which would pay me full tuition and $10,000 a year stipend.
Wow.
By my calculation, that was $32,000 a year. Tuition was 22. They were paying me 10. And I knew that once I left law school, I would double that 32 because I think the market was paying about 60 or 64. So it was something that I went because I got paid to learn, got out of law school, started two businesses. One went really well, one did not go so well. And I looked up and I was the seventh year and I was up for partner. So that's true story. So I've just been lucky.
Okay. So outside of love, what characteristics did you exhibit that you think have helped you navigate the challenges of big law life?
Well, I've never been impressed by big law life. You know, I've never been impressed by the brands on the door. I've never been impressed or intimidated by the people who sit in the seat because I understand that brands are created with hype. You know, growing up as a kid, well, I remember when I went to private school in ninth grade, and I realized after 2 days I was the only black child in the class. And by the time I graduated, there were two of us. You know, Porsches, Audis, great cars, great homes, great second homes. And I decided then, I'd already had the personality and the mentality that I was not going to be, sorry about that, you know, quite frankly, I was not going to be intimidated by it. And that is something that has been critically important to my existence.
So would you say that sort of courage is the important characteristics of a young person that wants to be that wants to practice law, or are there others
Well,
that you sort of look for?
I think courage and the notion of not fearing failure and don't see failure as failure. See failure as a learning expense, you know, a learning exercise that makes you better. So that's part of it. But look, I mean, look at this in society. You know, I've gone into rooms with associates, not so much now, but when I was a young partner, and the potential client or the people meeting thought that I worked for the white lawyer. I mean, that's just society, and we've got to realize that. And we, you know, and it's a challenge, but we can't let that challenge deter us or stop us. And I think that in many respects, many people of color in particular have a sort of inferior, in some sense, complex because society has made it that way. I've always put myself or tried to be mentally strong to say that I'm not second to anybody. I always said, even before I was a partner, and some of my partners remind me of this, and these partners who are in their 60s or even their 70s, because they remember me as a young lawyer. I wanted a seat at the table. And you know, I kind of see it as like being on a boat. You go out in the ocean, you go in that ocean, and if you can steer that boat, or you could be in the captain's quarters, you can control where that boat is going. If you're not, then you run the risk that the boat gets so far out in the ocean, you don't know how to get back. And so I've always wanted to have some say, and I've always demanded say that I have a seat at the table, which is a little different because it does create, or it created back in the day, some degree of tension because of a black guy is telling a white institution that, you know, I expect to be, you know, that you confer with me. I expect to be involved in decisions, and here are my expectations. And so that's the way I've always approached life.
So if you're talking to a young lawyer that wants to work for Ernest Greer, wants to work at Greenberg Traurig, what are you looking for in them? Because I know a young lawyer, I don't think they can show up on sort of day one of the interview being that like they want to say, but what is it that you look for in them that indicates that they have that inside of them and at the right time it's going to come out?
Well, I never want to hire anybody who wants to work for me. Okay. I always want to hire somebody who wants to work with me. Okay. Because, you know, as I talk to younger people and I talk about mentoring, I say to them, I only mentor people who I feel have the capacity to mentor me. And just because I may be 54 and they're 24 doesn't mean that mentoring is one-sided. So it's always a focus of somebody who wants to work with me. someone who knows, I can look at grades, I can look at resumes, but what's most important to me is that someone understands that people who sit in these seats, who walk these halls, depend upon this institution to feed their families. And that is first and foremost. It's about the institution, protecting the institution and adding value to the institution. And so people who are not focused on themselves individually first, but people who are focused on preserving and being stewards of that which is which that which that which has preceded them. And so I make that decision very quickly based upon what people say and what people do. I will tell you that I also look for people with grit. Um, people who may not have had the straight line path, people who may not have gone to fancy schools or fancy law schools, but people who've had grit. I'm always attracted to someone who has really good college grades, who worked 20 to 30 hours a week. And so that's an attraction. And that's because in this business, whether you're a transactional lawyer or litigation lawyer, you're always dealing with everybody's issues or problems. That's what we get hired for, to deal with people's issues and problems. And if you don't have the notion of being of empathy, of feeling the emotional intelligence that this is something that someone is struggling with and they are asking us to resolve it, then your bedside manner tends to be inappropriate. And so, from my perspective, I'm looking when I meet with that person, do they have the bedside manner and the empathy that they will understand what our clients are going through, what our colleagues are going through, particularly in these challenging times. But that's what I pretty much look for, Gooch.
So you mentioned mentoring relationships. What type of mentors did you have along the way, and what sort of role did they play in your career path?
I look, man, I have been blessed. I've had a lot of mentors on a lot of journeys. I've had a lot of people make a great investment in me. And I will tell you that when I look back in retrospect, it's not just they being available to talk to me about career decisions and career moves, like I was available to talk to you, Gooch. Um, it's about what they said to me over time throughout our relationships, and for me to see it evolve. In other words, I like to feel that these quote unquote mentors are clairvoyant. If you really listen to what your mentors say and you go through life, and I think we notice this when we deal with our parents, things that your mom said 20 or 30 years ago, or things your dad said 20 or 30 years ago, and you see them evolve in life. And so I had mentors from elementary to high school to college to work, et cetera. And I continue to get mentors who come into my life and share their personal journeys and their confidential information so that I could have it in an educational sense, such that I can pivot and deal with some of the strife and challenges that exist not only in corporate America but family as well. You see, I always say that there are two most important things in life: it's family and profession. In terms of sort of core holds. Family. That's your friends. That's your mother, your children, your friends, etc. And then there's the profession. When they're both off, we got a problem. If one of them's on and one of them's off, we have hope. And so I have always tried to make sure that those two things are balanced. Try to be really simple about it. Keep those two things balanced in terms of that they're working.
Let's spin the table a little bit. So for your relationship with your mentees, how can mentees maximize their relationship with mentors to make you want to pour and invest in them more?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, here's the reality, right? You never know when you're somebody's mentor, et cetera. You just try to have I mean, you eventually know, but on a general matter, what we talked about was a very confidential matter.
Hmm.
And I was greatly applause, very, very happy that you would see fit to share with me. Um, I see it as that um, mentees should not expect mentors to always pick up and call them, right? Because in my mind, friendship is not about how often we talk. It's about, are you there when I need you? Am I there when you need me? So, I have a great friend who a couple of years ago, I hadn't seen him in 9 months, and he lives in Atlanta. Um, but here's the deal. I think mentees should feel more comfortable at reaching out, um, knowing those pivot decisions are just things that you're focused on. I think there's a lot of time wasted by young people because they fear asking questions that they may think are not good questions. Um, it's no different than me looking at a transaction that I may want to invest in. I used to try to look at them, and then I said, why am I doing this? So I got a guy. I send it to him, and within 24 hours, I get his thoughts on the transaction. And so, we need to look at mentor mentees the same way. Mentees should feel really comfortable with reaching out and just continuing to establish that relationship.
Yeah, I can't echo your sentiment enough about not being afraid to reach out and ask questions. Maybe we're busy and we didn't see the last message, so reach out again. It's
Yeah.
as long as we haven't told you to stop or no, you're not pestering us. Just catch us when you can. And
Right.
a lot of times it's on the mentee to take the bull by the horns and reach out and not sit back and say, well, if the mentor is not calling me, they don't want a relationship.
Right.
We're just busy. And we
Right.
will tell you if we don't want a relationship, but we're just
Yeah.
busy. And so I often emphasize that with my mentees, make sure you
Well,
reach out.
yeah, and a lot of people, particularly in our business, people who are not in our business, really don't understand that we're behind every day.
Mm-hmm.
That we have calls that we haven't made, we have text messages we haven't responded to, we have clients who are waiting on documents and things of that sort. And so we're behind every day, but it's not an issue of or a suggestion of a lack of importance.
And when you said earlier that you don't mentor people that can't sort of mentor you back, how does that work? What lessons have you learned from some of the folks that view themselves as your mentees, but you gain something from them?
Well, first of all, if it's the reverse, then what you communicate becomes preachy,
Mm.
okay? Because you're constantly telling them what they should be doing, okay? And I think as a mentor, you owe it to the mentee to try to get them to be empowered to share lessons, thoughts, perspectives with you. I will tell you this: my son-in-law, through my daughter, has a credit card, and he buys from me every month sweatsuit or some hip shoes and things of that sort. And so, my casual game is as strong as some of these young guys. You know what I'm saying? But if I were doing that, it wouldn't be right. My son-in-law, and I think in some respects I'm a mentor to him. He's a fabulous son-in-law. He's introduced me to boxing as a training mechanism, right? He's gotten certified in terms of training, and he can talk to me about whether I should be laying on my back and all of that. And so mentee and mentor is not just about profession, okay? I mean, it's about life. It's about challenges with spouse or girlfriend. It's about challenges with friends. It's about challenges with mother or father and whatever. And so I think a lot of people see this mentor thing as about being about profession. Okay. It's not just about profession, it's about life. And how do we deal with this life as men and women and as brothers and sisters? And that's really what it's about. I'll tell you, I don't know um, if you know Larry Dingle, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I met Larry Dingle in 1995. 5 when I was looking to leave Austin and Bird and go to another firm. And I had an opportunity to work with Larry. And Larry, then as now, premier zoning lawyer in this town, told me the following: Hey, Ernest, if you want a job, I'll give you one. You can work with me, but Ernest, you got bigger things ahead of you. At the time, he was at Peterson Diller, something like that. Peterson Diller was a 20-person, 22-person law firm. And to this day, if I haven't talked to Larry Dingo in the past couple of months, he calls me and tells me he loves me. He tells me he loves my wife. He mentors my wife. He mentors me. We catch up. And here's a man, 70 some years old, that's been with me by my side since 1995. And while on those calls, maybe we'll talk something, maybe we won't talk something. The fact that I know he has my back, the fact that I know that if I need something, that he's there, empowers me to be better. It gives me more credibility because, see, the thing about having the right mentors, when you have the right mentors, you have to understand you take on their strength, you take on their relationships. And so, even when I was dealing with my firm and issues, et cetera, I never felt that I was abandoned. I always felt, going back 15 years, I had Atlanta with me. I had given to Atlanta. We continue to try to give to Atlanta, but I knew that I could go to a lot of people in Atlanta and say, here's my issue. I need some help. And they'd say, Ernest, where do I need to show up? And say, hey, Ernest, I got it. I got you. And, that's the beauty of Atlanta, which is much different than St. Louis. And the beauty of Atlanta is that it has been so good to me and my family. And I will tell you, I can't really ever remember my asking somebody to do something for me that was important and they saying no.
That's deep. So we know about Ernest, the lawyer. We know about your career at Greenberg. Tell us a little bit about your time at the Chamber. I don't know that everyone knows that you actually led the Georgia Chamber.
Yeah.
And what was it like leading that prestigious organization?
Well, I loved it, right? It's a very conservative organization that's policy focused. Georgia, red state. So the Chamber is reflective of that. It accepted my leadership. We pivoted from focusing just on the big businesses of the world, Southern companies, ATT, Verizon, and we pivoted to focusing on small businesses and small businesses throughout the state, because as we know, small businesses are what really drives the economy. And we made them understand that while a Georgia Power or ATT and Verizon are really focused on the policy issues to make Georgia the best state, um, um, the best state to do business in. And in fact, I'm proud of the fact that we received that recognition during the first time during my chair year. That the small businesses of the world and the medium-sized business of the world aren't focused on policy or legislation. They're focused on revenue. And if I join the chamber, if I'm part of the chamber, can I meet the big companies that I can serve as a vendor to? And I was happy that the chamber pivoted to understand that the way we engage small businesses and mid-sized businesses focusing on their dynamics of revenue. It's not about, whether Georgia allows this or Georgia allows that. It's about people fighting to pay their employees, people trying to find affordable health care and things of that sort. And so that was one of the things I was proud of. The other thing I was proud of is that we made an effort to create a one Georgia, not North Georgia, not South Georgia, not Atlanta, one Georgia. And I think that we made great strides on that. And then the final thing I was proud of is that during my leadership, you saw outreach to the minority and diverse communities. Prior to my becoming chair, I think whenever we had our retreat, you would only have the majority speaker of the House speak. When I was chair, it was the first time that the minority speaker spoke, and that was Stacey Abrams. And so we made a more inclusive Georgia. We made a more inclusive, not just based upon red or blue, but based upon outreach, based upon gender, um, you know, color, and the like.
Okay. So I often say that I believe that leadership is a willingness to fail publicly because spotlight is on you. Things go bad, it's going to rest on your shoulders, and it's risky, right? Leading a bunch of alpha personalities at a mega firm must be a challenge. So, what motivates you to deal with that daily grind of being a leader?
Well, look, man, I don't ever remember. You know, it's so funny because when you're young, you're just young. You know, as you get older, you start, you know, you actually go look at the definition of leader. And of course, we all looked at that definition when we were in elementary school, probably middle school, high school, but we really don't start understanding that um, until we get older. And we don't start understanding that there are different methods and styles of leadership. Um, I'll tell you this, Gooch. Here's the reality. From the moment I mean, from elementary school to middle school, whether it be awards, whether it be sports, whether it be top of your class, whether it be whatever, I've always been blessed to be at the top. Um, and you know, when you start, you know, and you start over all the time, right? You start over, new partner, I started over. But I've never thought that any of my partners had any better ideas than what I did. And I never thought that any of my partners could run the business any better than I did. Here's what I will tell you though. Um, the one thing that is not expressed as it relates to leadership is that in the definitions is that to be an effective leader, you've got to be a hell of a follower
Hmm.
and you've got to have the utmost empathy. You see, in my system, I work for our 5,000 employees. It's not just about working for our principal shareholders or our executive committee or our lawyers. I work for every staff member in this firm. Every staff member has a right to reach out to me with complaint or applause. Every staff member has a right to expect that I will effectuate and deal with challenges that they have. And then as an adjunct, I work for all their family members. And the reason is because if their family members are dependent upon them to provide, I have the obligation to make sure that this institution is run in a way that they can effectively have their jobs, maintain them with longevity, and pay their bills. That is the thing that is not included in the definition of leadership, because I would have told you when I was younger that the definition of leadership would be somebody who people see as a leader and they are athletic or they're smart or whatever. I think there are many leaders who don't have to be smart. I think there are many leaders who don't have to be athletic. But I think the common denominator of good leaders, um, uh, of good leaders, is that being empathetic, understanding that it's a blessing to lead, and understanding that leadership requires putting yourself second.
Wow. So I like to always ask, what's your North Star as a leader? And it sounds like yours is empathy, humility, and service. Does
Yep,
that sum it up?
yep,
Okay.
yep, yep.
Okay.
I mean, absolutely. And look, I mean, life is hard enough. I mean, let me explain this, okay? Um, for people like you and me, life isn't that hard. We have challenges, but the money comes in, and it's just a decision of do we buy this kind of car or that kind of car? Do we buy this kind of house or that kind of house? There are a lot of people that have absolutely no platform to make a decision. Life makes the decision for them. And so it's it's really difficult. And that's just the thing that has hit me the most in terms of me. And so in many respects, Gooch, I don't have the ambition that I used to have. See, ambition used to be driven that, hey, I want to move up and I want to, play a bigger role and all that. And that's all good and fine. But that's really not where my ambition is anymore. My ambition is to make sure that guys like you, and I talk to you all the time about how I love the way you led the emerging 100, love the way you've led the 100, making sure that guys like you and others really understand the obligation that we have, not to put money in the bank, but to make sure that all those who are less fortunate receive more fortune. And so again, looking outside of our professional careers, because the way I see this is what I do to, this is the career I've chosen to feed my family. But I want to focus on us feeding more of the families in need who are dealing with challenging lives. And so that's why I do what I do as relates to the History Center, Achieve Atlanta. They all have an angle and a purpose for improving community. Um, they're all focused on things that, we as Black people did not have an opportunity to be exposed to, that being, the arts, that being, an educational system that is fair, an educational system that really provides us real opportunities. Quite frankly, we never really had that as a people, but a lot of us have been able to get through it, and we are surviving. But we've got to get on with the getting on, which is this. Let's stop focusing on mentoring being about how you move up in corporate America. Yes, that should be part of it. But let's start focusing on mentoring about how do we deal with lives, people who are living in crime infested communities, people who can't find housing because they're unemployed, people who can't get medical care, people who can't get jobs. That's what we really need to be focusing on.
Okay, that's great. Are there any sort of books that stand out along the way that you've read that have sort of helped color your leadership principles or philosophy?
Yeah, it's called The Book of Life. And that is no reading of anything. It's just what I see. And, I see a lot of people who are similarly situated to me, and I get concerned because I get the feeling that they allow their corporate position dictate how they maneuver, what they go to. Um, I, um, I think that when we do that, we forget how we were raised. Um, my my the best book I read, to be candid with you, was The Book of Life, from remember when I was 5 or 6 years old to remembering when I was 25 years old and what was going on and what I was doing. I remember when I went to Harvard, and my wife was at Wellesley, we were told not to get on the orange line after a certain period of time because there was racism. And if we did, then, they were saying Italian gangs would beat us up. I remember being called a nigger my first week in high school. You know, I don't remember the accolades and the applause I get for being at Greenberg Trark, being co-president, et cetera. That's great. My mom will celebrate it. My friends may celebrate it. But I do remember, those occasions in which, I walked into a room as a young partner, and on two different occasions. And after I left, my partner was asked, "Are you sure this is the right lawyer?" Well, I was head of litigation in Atlanta and went through a sweepstakes competition. And my lawyer shared with me that they thought it could be race-based. So my point is that um, uh, we need more Black folk, and more folk who have these fancy positions to lead outside of their workplace. That's the point I'm trying to make to you, that it's fine about having a fancy position in this job and, making income, but my next 15 years, while certainly focused on my job, is really focused on leading in the community. And I've tried to do that, and I want to do that more.
Wow. So, being a lawyer myself, I'm curious about sort of in this pandemic environment, which has dealt a major blow to society as a whole. What are some of the obstacles that you've experienced managing through Greenberg Traurig, and how did you navigate these obstacles that the pandemic has presented for such a large and global enterprise?
Well, look, our computer system had never been tested in the sense of having 5,000 people work remotely, and we were tested, and we've survived that test, and we've done well on that. We created task force, and we were able to create issues and launch products and offerings that were responsive to COVID and the issues that people were facing, particularly, laying people off or, leaving people in, and, and what are the laws, and what is Congress or CDC saying, PPP loans and things of that sort. So we were able to maneuver. I think the biggest takeaway for me, though, and this is something that I preach, is that we never knew as leaders the awesome and challenging responsibility that mothers particularly have when children cannot go to school. We never really focused on the day-to-day of mothers, particularly, not saying that men didn't have this, mothers trying to balance having the children at home, homeschooling the children, and at the same time trying to do the work that's required at Greenberg Traurig. But when we did focus on it, we did some great things. We provided tutoring, paid tutoring up to a certain level to our staff. We did all kinds of other accommodations. But whatever we did and however we did it, I think it brought us closer together as a firm, as a family, but again, never really understood that challenge, and the importance that school plays in the home for mothers.
Wow. So for you personally, what are one or two of the obstacles that you had to overcome, either professionally or in your personal life, to get to where you are today? Anything stand out?
Well, I had to overcome being viewed solely as a Black man. That's and by the way, this, I'm an authentic Black man. I'm not,
As they get, authentic as they get.
I'm an authentic Black man. And that's something I think that, my peers had to struggle with, because, I'm coming 100. And so, so that. The other thing that I've had to overcome, which is a shame, and that is, and this is administratively, is he smart? I've had to overcome that, because the way I do things is that I don't presume that anything is done correctly. Okay, if I see a mistake, I want to know exactly why we do it that way, how long will we be doing it that way, and is it still relevant? And now, today, I think that there are things that we talk about in Greenberg Traurig. We talk about sizzle. That's something that I created. We talk about best in class. That's something that I moved forward. We talk about winning. We talk about relevance. And so, my administrative team, whatever, I think people have come to understand that it's not about challenging or keeping the current. Anybody can do that. It's about, what do we do as leaders to create the path forward that we see before anybody else sees, that there is no path to travel. It's us being in the brush, knocking down brush and moving forward. And I think that I've been able to overcome both of those things. And I sit in a very authentic, an authentic nature, which is good for me, because I can speak my mind when I want to speak my mind.
So on the first point, though, about being authentically Black, what helped you, avoid the pitfalls that others may throw out there for you when you come as authentically Black as you are? Is it just excellence? Do you just have to over excel? Like, how do you?
Well, see, I think a lot of people rely upon companies. I remember, when I talk to some people and when they say, well, the company, when I hear that, I say, oh, you've been gotten. The company. The company is just a company. It's a legal entity. It's a fictional existence. The company is represented by the individuals.
Mm.
So what I always saw was that tell me what the rules are, and then I'm not going to be a rabble rouser. I'm not going to be a difficult person, but I don't want to feel like I have to go to X's house to have beers. I don't want to feel that I have to go to Y's bar to drink and watch the soccer game. I don't like soccer. I don't like beer. And so, my thing was that in the practice of law, you got to do good work and you got to bring in business. And so when my firm was telling me not to bring in business, you don't need it. We have plenty of it. I didn't listen to that. I focused on my practice. I made an investment in my practice. I remember when I was a fifth year associate, I was making $83,000 a year as a fifth year associate. I was paying $25,000. That's 83 gross. I was paying $25,000 a year to have half a box at the Georgia Dome. My wife was receptive to that. And the reason I did it was because though the firm had tickets, they had 4 tickets. But when you start talking to executives about coming to the Falcons game on a Sunday, they were, coming from church or synagogue. And when you told them, hey, come after, your services, and we have, we have a bar, we have chicken, we have hot dogs. I started getting more reaction, and more people wanted to come. And some people thought I was crazy. And so in today's world, I tend to see students coming out of law school and whatever, not buying new clothes. They're just focused on paying down their loans. They're not making any investment out of their own pocket for their careers. But I'll tell you that $25,000 a year that I paid for about 4 years has multiplied many, 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 many times. And so, one, you always got to invest in yourself. Two, because the firm is never going to put the financial investment in you that you need to do what you need to do. Because if they are, then the firm doesn't really understand what you're seeking in terms of greatness and excellence. And two, you can't depend upon the institution. You've got to figure out what the rules are, and you got to live them, and you got to drive it. And the way I always saw it was from 8 till 7 was the firm's time. From 7:30 to 10 o'clock was my time. And I, quite frankly, happened to marry a woman who is a very, very much independent spirit, who never put pressure on me in terms of being at home for dinner with the kids and the like. And I just don't think that in this age, particularly for people of color, that they're going to have longevity at legal institutions by just working the hours. I mean, you got to go out and establish your own practice, your own relationships, because getting quote unquote internal referrals are usually far and in between.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying, Gooch?
especially for us.
You know what I'm saying?
Tell us about, as you reflect back on sort of your time, what are 2 or 3 of your successes that you're most proud of?
Of serving what, Gooch?
Successes that you're most proud of.
One, well, I don't know about most proud of, Gooch. I can tell you just from a family perspective, um, I'm proud of the fact that my mother and I have the best relationship that we've ever had. But I know, but I want to be proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that my girls and I and my wife have the best relationship we ever had. And so that's real cool. Look, one, I was the first Black managing partner at Greenberg Trark, and now we have 2 others, and we got a third one that's gonna be announced. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of that, because what that says is that I did a good job. I I let the firm know, and the firm will tell you I did not want to be the only one. And by the way, if you're in an institution, you're the only one. You got to ask yourself, what's up, and you got to push so it's not. So I was proud of that. I proud, I mean, Gooch, look, man, I'm proud to know you. I'm proud, I mean, seriously, I'm proud to watch you move from the emerging to now, So I can't say that there are any particular thing that I'm proud of. Um, um, but I just, I'm just thankful. You know what? I'm full of gratitude. How about that?
Okay. So one question that I like to ask in these discussions is, what's one of the things that you want to have back that didn't go so well? What's one of those things, and sort of what did you learn from that experience?
Okay. So, Gooch, I know you won't believe this, but I think you know Chad Lee
Mm-hmm.
in the 100, and I think he would tell you this. I had an opportunity, Gooch, to probably play pro football. A
Okay.
lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
And I went out as a sophomore. I didn't play freshman football because they had freshman football at Harvard, and I told them that's too low for me. I went out as a sophomore and I started, but I never lifted weights. I never did anything, and I tore up my knee. Um, One, what I learned from that, I was glad that I didn't take football scholarship offers coming out of high school. My mom pushed me not to do that. I was glad about that. I was glad I had a plan B. You think about it, my life going to investment banking, I decided not to. I applied for law school, plan B. I just want to tell everybody that you always got to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I tell my firm, always got a plan B. Okay. Uh,
They might
uh,
want to act up one day. You never know.
right. Yeah. So all that is that I wish that I would have given it my all to play football. Um, but so that's something I regret. Um, I think the other thing that I regret is, in some respects, is that my brother, who was a member of the 100,
Yeah.
um, was very active in the 100. On weekends, mentoring, etc. And I was really caught up in my professional career, traveling. We talked every day, but I didn't spend time at his place, just chilling with him in his environment. And he came to my place. And, I wished I could have spent more time with him. But, one of the things I'm excited about that he always wanted is his son and I have a really good relationship, and we continue to work on that. Um, but, I think my biggest regret is that my brother and my father aren't here to kind of enjoy what's going on, what we're doing as a family, and weren't there to participate in my daughter's wedding and stuff like that.
And we miss him to this day. I was just thinking on King Day, we used to do our Comcast Cares Day experience, and it was
Yeah,
through your brother. So I was
yeah,
literally just thinking about him
yeah,
2 days ago.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
he definitely made his impact.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if
I
you
mean, has been my biggest mentor. Has been my biggest mentor in my life.
had a college student that was saying, "Hey, I see what Ernest Greer has been able to do and accomplish, and I want to be like that one day," what advice would you give a college student? And what advice would you give that same person if they were 30 and had worked and started on their professional journey? What advice would you give those two?
So look, I would tell a college student, I would tell a 30 person this. Uh, never, never put yourself on such a strict path. My life has been about being blessed to recognize when an opportunity presents itself, whether it's an opportunity that I should take. Remember this, when I became administrative partner, the first time I said I wouldn't do it. The firm came back 6 months later and said, well, you gotta do it. So I almost missed on that opportunity. Then when I became managing partner, the firm came and said, well, we want you to be vice president, et cetera. I didn't know if I wanted to do that because that takes away from the clients, et cetera. And so my point is that we run into opportunity all the time. And if we're too restrictive in our viewpoint, too myopic, we may miss that opportunity because we've always said we want to do X, Y, and Z. So keep an open mind. The other thing that I would say in terms of a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old, don't come and do what I do in terms of my profession unless you're prepared, unless you're prepared to work from 8:30 to 8:30 um, p.m. and to, quite frankly, work a day on the weekends. That is, that's table stakes. And um, you know, as a young person, I see, I know how my kids are. They don't want to work that much. But, if you get through it and you're successful as a partner, and when I say successful as a partner, everybody has to understand that partners have different levels of success. But if you're bringing in business and you're making it happen, whatever effort you did in that 5, 6, 7, 8 years will pay dividends beyond your imagination.
Okay. So I have two more questions. Then we have two questions from the audience.
Okay.
So my next question is, you mentioned that you inspire on a daily basis. What are sort of the tactics, or how do you inspire people? Is there a particular way that you connect with them, or how do you inspire them?
Well, many people don't understand who they are, what they are, and what they bring. People are looking for a position on the field. We know that everybody who plays in baseball is a major league player in the major leagues. But imagine if that first baseman had been put behind the plate as a catcher. He may have not ever made the major leagues. So you inspire by understanding who the person is, what they bring to the table, and then you articulate it to them. You explain how they fit in and why they're valuable. You explain to them what elegance and what behaviors and what traits you need them to put on the platform to make the platform more sticky. And then therefore people are not walking around in a daze or in confusion thinking that they're not bringing value. Okay. Um, yesterday, I was sitting behind my desk and I had some things to do and I was doing it, but I just kind of felt like I wasn't bringing value. There was something about it. And I wanted to send an email or a text, just say, hey, to part of my leadership team. And then I got a call from my executive chairman last night doing dinner. And he was talking about some of the things that we need to get accomplished this year and what he needed me to do, et cetera. And he complimented me on what I'd done and whatever. And so we all deal with that sense of insecurity that arises. We all deal with that malaise and that confusion. And so I try to spend time articulating to people where I see them fitting in and how they bring value and what I really need them to work on to make us even better.
That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. So my last question is, what do you want your legacy to be as a leader and as a professional?
Gooch, it's so funny. Um, I don't I don't really think about it like that. Um, I don't I don't care about flags being half raised. I don't care about um, an obituary in the Wall Street Journal. What I care about is the people, each and individual that I and my family and others have helped, that have had a better life for having helped those people. I know a lot of people who could die with great prominence and, they were this and they were that. But other than being paid to run that company, what have they done? And so when I sit in this seat, I am mindful of the fact I get paid to do this. But when I sit in the seat of what we do as a family to help individuals, what my children do to help people, what I do to help people, that's something we're not being paid to do. And so I guess I would want to have a legacy of those who we helped, and they know that we've helped them, and we don't need any affirmation of what we've done and what we haven't done.
Perfect. So the first question from the audience is emotional intelligence is sort of key right now. Are there certain things that you do to hone that emotional intelligence, or is that just the book of life?
Man, that's the book of life, man. Look, we all grew up with a hustle. I mean, the reality is that maybe at different levels. Maybe some people grew up in white neighborhoods and was one of the few black kids. But look, just think about what you had to do to maneuver to do that. Ain't nothing changed. You see, and that's the thing that I learned at my first firm. I thought because going up the elevator, maybe things changed a little bit. My suits were right. Maybe things changed a little bit. Ain't nothing changed, and we've grown up with that, and we've grown up with this life, and we just got to live life. It's not an emotional intelligence, it's a life intelligence, and we know it. You know what I'm saying? And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, you can try to be there on the subjective. Oh, we really like Ernest Greer, he's a great guy. Okay, I don't really care so much about the subjective. I care about the objective. That is how much money am I bringing in? How many clients do I have? And what are the results I'm getting? Okay? Because I think if I drive that, then it really doesn't matter about the subjective. It's just like when I was playing basketball in school. I didn't care whether somebody hit 50. All I need is to hit 81. They hit 80, we win. Okay. So
Mhm.
all we need to do is stay close, lock them down for the last couple of minutes, and win. And so where I am is that um, let's stay on the objective. If the objective is to have $5 million of business, get $5 million of business. Don't talk about, well, I can't get 5 million because there are no blacks here or they're there, whatever. Just make it happen.
Hit the number. And I think this is a fitting end for the last question
Mm.
because our one of your mentees is asking this question. So this is from Mitch Robinson.
Mm.
He said, "What are some of the lessons you've learned as a parent that have translated to your ability to lead effectively?"
A couple of them. First, patience. Second, gender does matter. Understand the audience and the method of communicating. I tend to be a direct communicator, and I learned with my daughters that sometimes you need to have 3 or 4 discussions, though where it's gonna end up, right? And so patience, understand your audience, and then the most important one is credibility. In this position, what you get sometimes is and this is something we have to understand. As a black man, um, there are sort of two circumstances. There's a circumstance where someone deserves to be promoted, and then there's a circumstance, talking about somebody blacks, where they don't deserve to be promoted, but they want you to promote them because they say other people got promoted who didn't deserve to get promoted. Um, credibility, credibility in leadership is so important. If you say it's a meritocracy, you have to live that life as a meritocracy, and sometimes it puts you on the wrong side of the table, a table you don't want to be on the wrong side of. That is somebody who's of color who feels that you're not, that two wrongs make a right. But I've learned that credibility of leadership is so important, because if you don't have credibility, people won't follow.
That is a great way to end it, brother. And I personally thank you. The 100 Black Men of Atlanta, thank you for your time. We
Yep.
appreciate all you do for our organization. And we look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Thank you for this time. I think our students will definitely benefit from it, and our young professionals and the emerging and our members will benefit from it. So thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Gooch. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and everybody stay safe, okay?
All right. We love you,
All right.
brother.
And love you too, my man. All
All
right.
right. Have a good one.